Sweet Christmas.
Shout out to my birds.
Hello, hello, hello. This is Che.
And this is Cory.
And this is the Next Time On podcast. And today we will be talking about comic books. Some good, some very bad.
Yeah, sometimes when we come together, we pick out probably 5 to 10 books each week, each episode to talk about, and we kind of break it down from there. And for some reason, Che decided to stick with these books.
Let's not act like it's not fun for the listeners. Our podcast is on two very different spectrums. I think the content is two. We talk about stuff that's really good and stuff that's really bad, and we have to give them a little bit of what's bad. We'll also be talking about.
I think you just like to make me angry. I think that's what that's what this podcast.
I don't know
is.
Why you say make you angry. Like I'm not also upset about this.
No, I'm saying you're the one who I was like I don't want to read that.
I didn't write the fucking book, Cory.
I just that Bendis book is going to be shit. I don't want to read this, and you're like it'll be funny though. And I'm
it will be funny.
And
we just have to get today. We have to get there. We'll also be talking about the potential Will Smith Oscar vehicle, King Richard, and closing out with the discussion of the third and fourth episodes of Hawkeye. But, of course, if this is your first time listening, please, I don't know if we did this for your first time, get 10 minutes in, see if you like it, which you will. Go rate us 5 stars on your preferred podcast platforms. You can also follow us at Next Time On Pod on all your social media platforms. And I would say most importantly, really, go check out all the old podcasts, all the future podcasts, all the old writing and stuff. It's on nexttimeon.net. And you can also follow our YouTube episode, which, barring any technical difficulties, this will be a video podcast. You can check out over there. The link is in the description. And like I said, we have a jam-packed episode. So let's just fuck around and get down to business.
Sure
Cory,
thing.
What is your elevator pitch for this week?
Sure.
Well, you have to wait me. I don't know why I said all that like I was ready. I'm not.
Yeah,
ready.
I don't know. I was gonna dive into it, but okay.
So I heard you about to start talking, and I was like, I don't have the timer set up. I don't have any of that shit ready. Okay. Now the timer's set up.
Well, now I'm not ready.
How are you not ready? I don't
kidding.
understand.
I'm ready.
All right. When you're good to go, just start talking.
Okay, I'm just gonna pull up the what I'm gonna talk about in the background because I'm being annoying now. This is me more just being annoying.
You weren't lying when you said you weren't ready.
No, I wasn't. I was not lying. No.
I'm just gonna start the timer.
Do it.
Timer started.
Okay, so what I'm doing is it's a very good book called All of the Marvels. I'm sure I think there's a longer title to it, written by Douglas Walk. What he did in this book was something that I have considered doing, but realizing how insane it is, I decided not to do. He read every Marvel comic from the beginning until about 2020. In doing so, it was kind of it was analyzing the industry as it flowed through these comics, but also trying to establish the broader Marvel story. It's an interesting, insane look at the world of comics. The point of collective storytelling that has been Marvel Comics to today. It's fascinating, and I mean I'm one of those people who are definitely is up my alley. But if you ever want to kind of dive in to kind of understand comics and see where it kind of started and what the story is now, I highly recommend it.
Yeah, I mean this is psychopath shit.
Yeah, no, it's fucking insane. It's an insane. There's tens of thousands of comics for sure. I mean, I'm probably lowballing it.
Yeah.
But it's also, I mean, we jumped into comics. I jumped into comics, and we talked about this. I jumped into comics in the early 2000s, which is my primary reading point for Marvel comics. And even then, I know all this shit about it, and I've learned things from the past. But that's only 20 years out of a 60-year project.
Yeah.
And I mean, the Marvel universe in itself is a very fascinating thing. I never really thought about it until I was reading his introduction to the story itself. But Marvel Comics is the longest consistent run of collaborative storytelling that exists.
Yeah, there's nothing else like it really on planet Earth. Even the James Bond movies, which sort of are even connected, but those go only back to what, the 80s?
Yeah, but even then we see that watching the Daniel Craig ones, which basically was just a self-contained little series.
Right.
But what Marvel Comics is, it's just been telling one long story. And there's people who jump in, they tell their own little adventures during it, but the entire story itself hasn't been interrupted at all. I mean, people probably think about DC Comics. And DC Comics has gone through several relaunches in 1985, A Crisis on Infinite Earths, to more recently 2011 when we did the New 52, and then once again in 2016 when we did DC Rebirth.
And now Future State is sort of
exactly. So it's like,
something?
but I'm saying, yeah, exactly. So as someone who kind of got into this medium, because I'm a very big fan of like kind of seeing the larger picture and payoffs, and kind of jumping around the characters and just timelines and scale. I think the storytelling aspect of it is what initially drew me into comics, which I hate that because I dislike the fact that I know so much about comics now because it's completely useless information. But I really recommend the book. It's very well written. It's funny. It's funny. It's interesting. Just the experiment / project that is Marvel Comics. It's just like a very fascinating vehicle to look at just from the outsider's perspective. And the story they told with it makes sense. I mean, it doesn't make sense. I'm saying the story that they told through it, it does make sense in the fact that this has stayed around for so long.
Yeah.
And it's very impressive. I mean, I think the only time I've noticed, or at least from top of my brain, where comics almost died was the 90s. But they've been going pretty strong for the last 20 years. Thank you, movies.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, basically down to the movies are now probably the most popular, successful thing in the world at the moment. I mean, maybe not comic books themselves, but obviously comic book movies and the things that they've spawned. So.
That's like the last 20 years, honestly, of movies. It's been like kind of dominated by them. But I mean, Marvel Comics wouldn't have survived in the first place without selling off the rights to like X-Men and Spider-Man.
Well, I always think it's fascinating that
in the 90s.
Basically Marvel was going to die, going to go out of business before the sell-off of all this stuff, but also a big part of that, and we've already teased the fact that we're going to talk about his terrible book, but I mean, Bendis sort of single-handedly saved Marvel with Alias years back. I mean, they desperately needed a book that would sell, and they didn't have anything, and then Alias sort of changed the way that people thought about comics.
And that was a start. I mean, like to an extent, like the Dark Knight Returns kind of like changed the game of comic books. Back when it came out, and it kind of like with Watchmen a little bit, but kind of just the medium itself, they kind of taken this stuff a little bit more seriously. And with Bendis and his introduction to Alias, which is Jessica Jones, the initial series, it was kind of more of like a cynical / like serious take on the world of superheroes. And I think you're right. I think that's when like the stories themselves, like, because I mean, they was tackling larger issues, but like the stories themselves, on a more consistent basis, were taking themselves a bit more seriously. And I mean, for better or worse, with what, I mean, later on in time, it's like very clear that it was needed. But I mean, I don't know. I have some like back and forth with what I feel like comics got a bit too serious. But I mean, the industry was necessarily saved by that, and like Civil War, the introduction of like lesser known characters in the more modern settings like Luke Cage. But yeah, I mean, I think like without that shift in the early 2000s to Bendis' Avengers, we wouldn't really necessarily have what we have nowadays, and we wouldn't have had the Hawkeye series, which is the Matt Fraction Hawkeye run, which the Disney Channel one is heavily not stealing from. He's a consulting producer, but it borrowing from. But I will stop talking now because we have a lot more to talk about, and I can talk about this shit all day.
Yeah, it sounds like a fascinating book. I do think that somebody should check in on your boy.
Absolutely.
Douglas Walker. Something's wrong with him. Something's wrong with him.
I considered just like reading all of the X-Men comics, which were like currently into like 600s, I think, and I was gonna read Uncanny X-Men from the beginning to the end. But then I started, and I'm like, absolutely not. This is going to be insane. And then he's like, I read all of them. I'm like, there is some garbage that exists. There is some of the worst comics I've ever read in the Marvel, like existing in the Marvel.
Even during the golden age of comic books, there are some books that are kind of unreadable and have aged horribly, incredibly terrible.
Who Boy was like, I think like I want to say Reed Richards Mr. Fantastic, was the most sexist fucker ever. Where it's just like constantly just like, you're a woman, you don't matter in this. Get out of here. Like there's a scene in the first James Bond where he's like, shut up, woman, this is man talk, and it's like it's basically that energy for the 60s and 70s of comics. Yeah. Not great, but hey, at least like X-Men with Chris Claremont kind of like started shifting away from that.
Although the Comicsgate guys are really upset about that.
It's really funny that they're upset with like these gay and multicultural characters when it's been happening since the 80s. This is a weird straight white man like need to hold on to the sanctity that is comics or whatever. It's very like strange where like the medium itself is very, very involving a lot of people in very tight clothing of both sexes. I'm just saying, I feel like they're projecting about some shit that they're concerned with in themselves.
Let's not let's not dive too
Fight me, nerds.
All right, I'll go. I know Corey got a solid 9 minutes on his thing. But
damn, really?
Close to it.
I should teach you.
All right, I'm gonna do my elevator pitch.
Sorry, guys.
Minute on the clock and go. So it is that time of year where Netflix turns from a studio that outputs just completely forgettable TV shows to dropping some of the year's best movies. I don't know when they started to do this. I guess it was with Roma. But
I think maybe they're kind of sorry, I'll stop talking.
This week I watched the Jane Campion movie starring Benedict Cumberbatch, Kirsten Dunst, and Jesse Plemons, The Power of the Dog, based on the book of the same name. It is just it's like a beautiful watch because I think partially out of necessity, but also just because New Zealand is the most beautiful country on earth. They shot in New Zealand, and there's just all these massive vistas that are masquerading as the Midwest, and Benedict Cumberbatch and Jesse Plemons and Kirsten Dunst deliver some of the year's best performances in a truly strange and wonderful movie. That is.
It's very. I think it's very similar to Oscar season in the movie theaters. I think that everyone's just kind of started to like think about it in that capacity.
Yeah, also, I understand it.
Yeah, this is a good time to release like at-home movies too when it starts getting cold outside and shit. It's like the right time to do it.
I think it has been sneakily the biggest part. I'm sure they're happy with stuff like Squid Game and what was the big show from last year that everyone talked about for a week and then forgot about?
Tiger King?
Oh, yeah, Tiger King. I'm sure they're happy with all this stuff. I don't really know at this point how Netflix how their numbers work, because obviously they're just, most people now have Netflix, and no matter what Netflix does, we'll never get rid of it. So I don't really know how in their boardroom they justify spending money on stuff. I'm sure they're still just saying, we need content. But I'm very excited for this time of year. There's another one coming out. Oh my God, This Way Up is another Netflix movie that's coming out. I got tickets for that on Sunday in the actual movie theater. But they just get massive names to make great movies. I mean, Jane Campion is a legendary filmmaker, and then you have this cast. I mean, Thomasin McKenzie, who is coming off of the Edgar Wright movie Leave No Trace, is like a bit part in this movie. It's kind of weird. I think partially just because she's a New Zealand actress and I guess was just around, and they caught her at a time where she was
everything's in New Zealand.
Not super famous yet. Although I guess this has to have been shot after Jojo Rabbit, so she's like a household name. I thought it was really weird. She has like 3 lines. It's very weird. But I mean, I love Thomasin McKenzie, so I'm not gonna.
Oh, Kirsten Dunst?
No, Kirsten Dunst is like a major.
I'm joking.
I know we all like Kirsten Dunst will be tarnished.
She won me over in Fargo.
Yes, but I think most people still think of her as terrible Mary Jane, and I will never defend the original Spider-Man trilogy and her character because it's bad. Don't get me wrong.
I will go to bat for the first 2, but it's.
But not her. But not even her character in the first 2 though. Like she's even her character's bad in those movies.
Oh, her character sucks. It's just like it's very original. Like that woman has no she has no actual character, so it's just going to be these 2 men fighting over her.
Yeah, I think there is a generation of people, and a pretty large part of a generation of people who really have only ever seen her in the 3 Spider-Man movies, Jumanji, and maybe Bring It On.
And people
those
don't
are,
people.
those are not the performances that
And
you want to remember.
if
Kirsten
you
Dunst
told
for.
me Jumanji for her, I would not. I forgot that she was in Jumanji.
Well, she's
So
also she's like a kid.
yeah. So I'm like, I would be like, okay, I don't who in Jumanji, but that you're
It is
right.
true. I
You
mean,
are very
basically,
right.
people only think about Robin Williams when they think about Jumanji, but there are other people in that movie. Surprise, surprise.
Whatever. It's fun. I still anybody who comes with me to take that Tobey Maguire or Andrew Garfield are better than Tom Holland. I just don't understand. We were watching different things.
I think it's just nostalgia.
nostalgia.
I don't fault anybody for being nostalgic. I fall victim to it myself. But as you said, it's not like you weren't watching the same movie as everybody else. I'm sure. I was actually saying I love Tobey Maguire. I don't really care about Tobey Maguire. He's the worst Spider-Man. It's like not a question. I don't care what anybody says. You can make the argument that Spider-Man 2 is better than any of the Andrew Garfield movies.
I will make that argument. I will state that.
I don't
100%
really like Spider-Man 2, but that's not. An argument.
Man, that's
all I'm saying is he is not good.
Spider-Man 2 is the shit. The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is the worst.
The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is terrible. It's not the
Horrible.
worst. It's not worse than
Horrible.
Spider-Man 3. Spider-Man 3 is still the worst Spider-Man.
Oh, I don't know, man. I think I'd rather sit through Spider-Man 3 than the Amazing Spider-Man 2 again.
No, man. It's a tough one. It's definitely close. I mean, those are definitely.
I will get the Tobey Maguire dance scene, so I'm very okay with that. Still one of the greatest scenes in any film I've ever seen.
I think people like have latched onto that as the worst part of the movie. The worst part of the movie is without a doubt, everything that Topher Grace is doing.
Yeah, I don't understand. It's such
What's
a
his
weird
character? Why is he doing everything he's doing? He's so pointless. He's the worst Eddie Brock by far, and that's saying something because we have 2 truly awful Venom movies since then.
I was having a thought, and I guess we can dive into the episode after this, but I was like, I hate the fact that they're gonna probably branch Tobey Maguire to Tom Hardy into the Tom Holland films, but I would like having Tom Hardy under a good writer, with Tom Holland to work off of. It's kind of worth the sacrifice.
I also like. I know you have you still have never even seen either
Absolutely
Venom movies, right?
not. Well, come on,
he
man.
is actually good in the movies. It's not
Tom
like
Hardy.
he's having a blast doing the weirdest shit I've ever seen him. It's not his fault. It's literally every single other thing around him is terrible. But I'm not unexcited for him being in the MCU.
Yeah, I think we should just destroy everything that he's currently working on in that universe and just keep him. We can just take him out.
I think they basically did, right?
I don't. I think No Way Home's about to fuck some, like, just gonna be like a bunch of just multiverse like smashing together. Something's gonna come out of it, and
I didn't
don't
really
know what.
realize how excited people were for this movie until I went to the movie theater last night to go see Come On, Come On. Also excellent. I'm sure you'll hear about it on this podcast later from me. But they're reopening the bar, which has been closed since they reopened in June or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And they're reopening the bar because they're expecting actual like crowds again.
Yeah.
To go see Spider-Man. And this is not a movie theater that shows superhero movies usually. They started showing them since the reopening, I guess, to get more tickets.
You gotta get your money.
But this is like an art house movie theater. Like,
yeah, and this is gonna be
they show
art.
weird Japanese films like My Car or My Drive.
Yeah, it has Oscar nominated. It's gonna have eventual Oscar nominated actor Benedict Cumberbatch in it. I mean, come on.
It's so weird. I mean,
and Zendaya. Everyone loves Zendaya. You saw the 6 minutes of Dune. Everybody loves Zendaya. Easiest paycheck ever.
Can I say something here in a safe space?
No, this isn't a safe space.
Okay, fine. I'm gonna say it anyway.
You can say it.
I'm not 100% sure Zendaya is a good actor.
Okay, let's move on to the. Let's move on. Let's move. No, stop it. This is the same shit with Hamilton.
No. I really like watching Zendaya. I'm a big fan.
This is why we get 4 stars. This is why we don't get 5. This is why we get 4 stars, because you're bad takes.
Before you go tank our reviews, listen to me. Tom.
Before I tank our
Arkansas. No, not you. I'm talking to Tom in Arkansas.
Okay.
Before you go on iTunes and rate us less than 5 stars, which we absolutely deserve, all I'm saying is I really enjoy watching Zendaya act. I think she's fantastic in Euphoria. It's hard to say she's great in Dune because she's not really a character yet. I think she will be good in future Dunes. I like her as... Is she Mary Jane? Have we decided if she's Mary Jane or not in the Spider-Man movies?
I mean, she's MJ. It's like literally
but her name is not Mary Jane.
They're not going to change. They're not going to change her name to Mary Jane. But I'm very I think the entire point of it was just like, oh, it's actually MJ. Ha ha ha.
Fair.
So yes, I accepted being like. I accept that.
I think she is still very raw, and I've thought about this ever since I watched Malcolm Marie earlier this year, where I don't really think John David Washington's that great of an actor, but he's sort of like acting circles around her in this movie that's, for a lot of reasons, very flawed and weird and kind of a little bad. I don't think it's really their fault, but if people haven't seen Malcolm and Marie, it is a fascinating watch just to watch these two actors who I think are both going to be much better than they currently are. And I will be fascinated to see what Zendaya looks like in season 2 of Euphoria, because I think that is her chance to really become like a true powerhouse actress.
I mean,
I know you don't really fuck with Euphoria, but it is.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I can. Sorry, can you? What was? I'm sorry, I just lost my train of thought, guys. I was looking up something for later on in the episode. I completely lost my train of thought.
Is it about Bendis?
It is not. Well, yes, I was blanked out on that, but
that's all right. It's a good time, Eddie, to just fuck around, just talk about King Richard. Okay. From one beloved, but maybe unsuccessful actor to another, Will Smith's newest foray into his attempt to finally capture that Oscar, which he probably should have won for 6 Degrees of Separation, and also probably should have won for Pursuit of Happiness, and definitely shouldn't have won for Hitch, but I love Hitch.
I think Hitch. What are you talking about? That was.
Although the more I think about it,
is that the best Will Smith movie?
No, the best Will Smith. Let's not even.
Oh,
no
I'm sorry,
memes here. The best Will Smith movie is Men in Black. It's
okay,
no
I don't. I literally, my brain went to Men in Black as soon as I said something.
Yeah. But the problem with Hitch is that, despite how much we both love it, and how much I think I've seen it more than any other Will Smith movie, which is a little sad.
I owned it on PSP.
It did give us Kevin James, which is a net negative as a society.
It's like funny how much they like tried to make that a plot line that people would give a shit about, and I'm like, I truly do not care about the Kevin James plot line in this. And
it's also like, as a young dumb little boy, I was like, it's really cool that Kevin James is going to get to have sex with Amber Valletta, and now as a older dumb little boy, that's not like Kevin James does not deserve to be with a model in that movie. He's like
not charming. It's like that's the weird thing about it too. Like if they actually made his character charming, but it's that weird like movie romance thing where like they probably interact like 3 different times in the film in like a kind of like, oh, that's cute kind of way, and then they're getting married at the end of the film.
Yeah, it is the plot of every Adam Sandler movie where like beautiful, successful, talented woman who's way better than slobby, shitty man decides, oh, he's kind of nice despite the fact that he's way less successful, way less intelligent, and way less charismatic than me. Because he's a little bit nice, I have to marry him.
I mean, that's pretty much Kevin Can Go Fuck Himself, the TV show.
Yeah,
it's like that's like that is basically that concept. Which I don't know which came first, Kings of Queens, or Hitch, but both.
No,
of them.
I think Hitch is pretty much Kevin James when it was going to be. I'm pretty sure it was kind of the first thing he did, right?
I don't know, but
oh no! Apparently, Kings of Queens started in 1998, which is insane. Why do I feel?
I mean, like this is that was
his
his jump into being in movies, because people were like, oh, it's that guy from the sitcom, rather than being like, oh, now it's the guy from Hitch. But let's actually talk about King Richard.
Yeah, let's talk about Kevin James.
Let's know about I'm talking about Kevin James and a film that I was surprised how much I liked.
I'm with you on this. I think.
I went in with very low expectations.
Yes. I think it's gotten to the point where I go into Will Smith movies not even cautiously optimistic anymore, just like hoping and usually being disappointed. And I think this is my favorite Will Smith performance since definitely since Focus, which is not as good of a movie, I know, but
I mean, I 100% with you, like character-wise, I do agree with you on that. I'm pulling his filmography right now, but I think you're probably right.
I think the other we talked about a lot on this podcast how he's had a bad run, but obviously he got nominated for Concussion in 2015, which actually came out the same year as Focus. He was by far the best part of 2016's Suicide Squad, despite the fact that movie is more than a mess and a half. And kind of everything else he's done in the last few years has been either completely forgettable or just downright terrible. I mean, have you ever seen oh my god, Collateral Beauty? Is the movie from 2016. It is one of the weirdest fucking movies. So basically, do you know the concept of it? Do you see trailers for it?
Is that the one where like people are just like gaslighting him or something?
Yes, but that's you don't know that from the trailer. In the trailer, you think he's being visited by like these sort of. I think the trailer hints that they're like spirits or like dead people.
Yeah, no, from the it's like he's like doing this whole like he's like seeing dead people or whatever.
Right. And then it turns out he's just being like he's in the midst of the most complex con ever for so little payoff. And they got. Let me just read the cast of this movie to you guys really quick. Will Smith, obviously, Edward Norton, Kate Winslet, Helen Mirren, Michael Pena, Naomi Harris, Keira Knightley, and Dowd. This is not a movie with it's so many amazing actors in it, and it is unwatchable. But that is sort of the story of Will Smith. Big budget failures for a long time.
Yeah.
And
a lot of things
in a lot of ways is the safest thing he's done, and it kind of paid off.
Yeah, I think so too. I think this is like something that he definitely needed. It's relaxed. The role that I think it was with an actor like Will Smith. It's kind of like sometimes you forget that it's him. And I think this was the first time in a while where I just was so like caught up in the movie and his performance that I kind of forgot I was watching Will Smith. But I was like, I was surprised. Like, I mean, like, and I think there was a lot of like, I didn't really know about Richard Williams as a character, as a person, besides the whole like conversation people have about overbearing parents.
Well, he's the original crazy sports dad, or that's how I think he was portrayed in the media, and a lot of this movie, and so the Williams sisters, Venus and Serena were very involved. They're producers on this, and from the stories I heard, I listened to an interview with the director. They were pretty hands-on with the portrayal of their father and their story, and a lot of that is about, I think, very intentionally, was about rehabilitating his image as somebody who, like you said, like for my whole life until pretty recently, was the quintessential crazy, overbearing, like hogging the spotlight father.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember when LeVar Ball came onto the scene, the parallel was always made to Richard Williams. And I think this movie does a good job of not being a hagiography. Like it doesn't portray him as a perfect man. There are definitely some parts of this movie where you're like,
which I really enjoyed.
Yeah,
like,
this guy's a little bit crazy, if nothing else.
And it's
the
like
scene
such
where he tries to abandon his daughters in the middle of Compton is
fucking insane. Yeah, no, I'm so happy that was. I'm sorry, I gotta look up the actress's name, but who plays his wife in the film is just fucking fantastic.
This is a new Jesus Christ, Anujaya Ellis.
I believe
I'll dive
that
on
sounds.
the sword for you. She was most recently in oh my god, Lovecraft Country. She's the mother in Lovecraft Country.
That's what I recognized her from.
Yeah.
But no, she's absolutely fantastic in this film as well. She works so well off of him. But yeah, no, I think it's a really good, like, I thought it was a really good, like, and I mean, I read about a little bit about his life as well, but I thought this was a very good focus for a film like this, where the focus is on Venus and Serena and Richard Williams, and kind of showing behind, like, I mean, obviously we see the things on film, like on camera, and even things he was doing on camera in the movie itself when they were doing interviews and stuff like that. From an outsider looking in, he seems insane. But I think the image that the two were them, and I'm sure the writer and director were trying to portray with it, was like of like somebody who obviously was very off.
Mm-hmm. He's quirky, to put it nicely, I think.
Yeah, he's
but
quirky.
I also think a lot of the thing that's really good about this movie is that he's right. I mean, the title card at the end that's quite intentional is the almost everything that Richard planned for his daughters came true is basically how this movie ends. And I mean, if this is the first time you're hearing about Serena and Venus Williams, I don't know how big the rock you live underneath is, but a lot of that has to do with obvious, and they clearly believe so based on the tone of this movie. A lot of that has to do with what he did.
And if you actually like portray this as a fictional film, it doesn't sound believable. And like I was like,
it is true. Yeah.
It doesn't sound believable. Like this person, like you kind of like want, like in a weird way, like it's a cocky person. So you kind of like, I kind of hope you're a little bit wrong, but it's like, no, this motherfucker was right. he was right about everything, and it's like, yeah, and I was watching the film, and it's like such like they do a good job about being like, oh, he's kind of a dick. Oh, like why? Like he's kind of feel like he's talking out of his ass sometimes, but.
Yeah.
The end of the day, he was right, and I think it's kind of cool that they portrayed the two coaches as they did, where they're both like not assholes. They're just like they portray them as normal people who would react to somebody like this in believable ways. And instead of making the coaches be like, "You're wrong forever," like I think it's like they handle it realistically.
Yeah.
Where like if he was like, I would have lost my mind if the child I was training for 3 years got offered millions of dollars, and then they're like, "Nah, we're good."
Well, but also the child you're training for years, and the only way you ever make money is if she makes money.
Exactly.
So, like, he hasn't been paid anything for like he bought them this amazing house and the mobile home. That part has to be at least slightly exaggerated.
I don't think
I don't
I
understand
feel like
the business model of being like, let me dump millions of dollars into this family, hoping that they might make money one day.
I mean, I think the point of it is that like he probably was already very, very wealthy. And
Yes,
I mean,
it is true.
And I'm sure it's paid off. I mean, all you really need is like what 4 or 5 people to actually do it over like the course of 10 years, and I think you're okay.
Yeah, I mean the amount of money that Venus and Serena Williams have made, he's probably doing fine. 15% of that. I wonder if he's still getting paid.
I don't think. I think I looked up. I don't think he's their coach anymore. But I think that he stopped being their coach like in the last 10 years or some shit like that. I didn't look it up that hard, guys. I don't really know the story more than the movie itself.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like, what is that? 15% of like what was the deal? Like 80 million or what? It was like 14. It was a shit ton of money, right?
Yeah. And that was just Venus.
It was just Venus.
The other thing that's really interesting about this movie is that this is a Venus Williams movie. I mean, Serena is like a side character. We get that very well acted speech. I think it's probably Will Smith's best moment in the movie, where he's talking to her as she's staring at the court after. Is it after the match or before the match? I don't remember. But he's like, I planned this whole thing out. Where your sister will be number one, but you'll be the greatest of all time. It's a great moment. I mean, I don't buy that happened in real life for a second, but I know these movies have to take some.
I did like
artistic license.
I will say, I think my favorite scene was the one where after him and his wife get in a fight because he like pulls Venus out of the tournament, and then he goes to see Venus. He goes to see Venus on the court. I thought that was my favorite. Like, there's just it's a very interesting performance by Will, because it's because like a lot of times it's very like he's just playing this person, but then every once in a while it'll just snap into these emotional scenes that I think the director did a good job about this, where you wouldn't expect that much emotion to kind of come out of nowhere.
Yeah. And
I think like all of the actors are very good reacting with it. I think there was a very good choice casting John Berthal as the coach, because he's just very good at that. I love John Berthal. Like, I think he should be in everything. I feel like every time I see him and I'm like, he should be in everything.
I think he's one of the few actors who has like a genuine like 100% approval rating. I don't think anybody doesn't like John Bernthal.
I don't know how you couldn't. And I hope that he could come back to the Marvel universe, but I don't really know if his character can come back. In the way that we're doing,
makes basically no sense in the current Marvel Cinematic Universe.
No,
Things would have to change drastically for him to be able to run around. But I do. Obviously, I think for a lot of reasons, Will Smith wanted to make this movie, but it is no secret that he is desperate for an Oscar.
Absolutely.
I think the bad news for Will Smith, though, is that he is currently the leading in the odds department for performance. The top 5 goes as follows: Will Smith and King Richard, Andrew Garfield and Tick Tick Boom, yikes, Benedict Cumberbatch in The Power of the Dog, Bradley Cooper in Nightmare Alley, which I haven't seen yet, but I'm incredibly excited for, Denzel Washington in my most anticipated movie for the last 2 years, basically, The Tragedy of Macbeth. And
this isn't fair. Peter
Dinklage and Leonardo DiCaprio rounding out the top prospects.
Is it Leo from that Adam McKay? Okay.
Yeah. And Peter Dinklage from Serrano, which honestly looks weird. I'm not a big Jill Wright guy. I did like The Darkest Hour, but I won't pretend to be like a huge fan of Atonement or Anna Karenina or Pride and Prejudice or anything like that. So I'm interested to see what it looks like when Peter Dinklage really gets to like run wild in a period drama. I'm excited for it, but I also point out that right now the highest odds best picture movie is Belfast, which will not be winning the best picture Oscar. I like that movie a lot, but a a black and white movie about a sort of like autobiographical look at Kenneth Branagh's life as he grew up during the Troubles in Ireland is not going to win the Oscar, and I think maybe Will Smith is maybe going to get unseated by one of these competitors behind him.
It's you know what the truth of the matter is though, like even like with that list, so I still think Will can like probably go for another one.
He is.
I think this is like I think he has the opportunity to enter a very interesting path in his career, where he like no longer. I mean, like he's getting older. He really can't do the action movies for much longer. I think this is this. To me, I'm like he's already rich as hell. Like just take the step and just full on like try to get your Oscar.
I mean, I think he's Corey. I think he's been doing kind of nothing else but trying to win his Oscar, and then every once in a while we'll do like a kids movie to line the bank. I mean,
okay. How about you start pick good movies to try to get your Oscar?
Right. That's the. I mean, this is his best opportunity since 2006.
Yeah.
In Pursuit of Happiness, and I think by a pretty wide margin.
Because I think this. Sorry, buddy. I just got.
No, I think the Oscar wants to give it to him. But I also think, based on how voting works, we see that even if the Oscar committee as a whole is interested in giving somebody an award a la last year, things can go wrong. Because, be it good or not, they don't rig the ballots. Because if they rig the ballots, I tell you right now, Chadwick Boseman would have won last year, and it would not have been Anthony Hopkins. So I think if the Oscars had their way, because they are desperate to be relevant again, they are very, very worried about their yearly decreasing ratings on the awards ceremony itself. I think Will Smith is clearly the person of most interest here. He is the most famous actor of this list, besides possibly Leonardo DiCaprio. But again, the tension of will Leo win his Oscar is gone now because he won it.
Yeah.
I think, ironically, worst case scenario for the Oscars is if Benedict Cumberbatch wins, because I think people are kind of weirdly sick of him in a way. At least I feel like I still love Benedict Cumberbatch. I watched that truly awful movie that he made last year about like lights.
I wonder
the current war. It was terrible.
Why do people not like? I always wonder like why people decide to not like certain actors.
Well, I think it just happens. People get oversaturated by people. It's the same reason
fair.
that like there was a thing early in 2020 or late 2019 where everyone decided Channing Tatum was ugly. It's because that was like Channing Tatum was in every movie for a while, and the way Twitter works is that people just hate things. They just want to hate things, and as of right now, nobody hates Will Smith. In fact, everyone pities him.
It's like I think I'm getting that whole thing with I think I'm kind of seeing that a bit with Timothée Chalamet. Mm-hmm. In the sense where I feel people who like either love him or people who don't like him, and I'm like, what movies have you seen him in? And they're like,
I think people hate Timothée Chalamet because until recently, it really seemed like he was having sex with Zendaya, and nobody liked that. But now we know it's a different 90-pound white boy.
Tom Holland?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was like, okay.
No, they're like officially dating. Like they.
Oh, are they? I don't fucking know these people's
I don't know. They
lives.
went to some movie premiere.
Whatever.
Out of curiosity, before we move on,
his
I guess
gossips,
we'll take a break.
Tabloids.
If you had to guess, where do you think Dev Patel is on the list?
Oh, from Green Knight?
Green Knight, yeah. A movie that we both really liked.
I loved his performance in it, too.
But did not do well box office-wise or critically.
Did not do well critically?
Sorry, not critically. It did well critically. It's the audience that didn't like it. But again, who cares about the audience?
Well, audience is bad.
Correct.
We are the only right people on the internet. Let's put that out there, audience.
Correct.
But I'm going to say like around like 11?
Well, 11 is Oscar Isaac in the bad movie, The Card Counter. He's a little bit further down. 25th.
Jesus Christ. His performance was so good.
As I said, these odds right now are a little bit skewed because also most people haven't even seen a lot of these movies. Like I said, nobody besides critics have seen Nightmare Alley, The Tragedy of Macbeth, Being the Ricardos, which will come out Friday. By the time you're hearing this podcast, it'll probably be out. Nobody's seen Red Rocket yet. A lot of the performances in these movies are on the list, including Cooper Hoffman's performance in Licorice Pizza, which either means two things. It means one of two things. It is amazing, or people don't know who Cooper Hoffman is. because he is not famous enough to be on this odds list. It's literally his first ever movie, so maybe his performance is like out of this park incredible. But yeah, 25th for Dev Patel seems kind of harsh. He's
That does seem
below
pretty hard.
Ansel Elgort for West Side Story.
Who's a bad person?
Allegedly. I think we still have to legally say allegedly.
Yeah, no, but we're not gonna fuck them.
They can't sue us. We have no fucking money.
Exactly. What are they gonna take away my podcast? They can see you in hell.
Anything else you want to say about King Richard before we take a quick
I recommend it. Like, I was kind of skeptical on this because I thought it was gonna be kind of boring, but I thought it was a good sports movie. Just by itself, but like if you're ignoring Will Smith's performance, I thought the film itself was very enjoyable. And which I think the performances in this film across the board were really, really good. And I think like even the kid actors were fantastic.
Yeah. And as somebody who like does not like tennis even a little bit, don't really care about the Williams sisters as athletes. I know their story is very inspirational.
Wow, what an asshole.
Really enjoyed it.
All right, you
I
guys heard
cannot like things. I'm allowed to
Yeah,
not
okay.
like something.
All right, let's go into break. Let's just like leave a thing though. Che hates Zendaya. He hates Hamilton, and he hates the Williams sisters. We'll be right back.
This is unfair.
It's not fair that you edit this.
It's very impressive, sir.
Yeah, see, I like that one. If I hadn't come in, Grassy was a dead man for sure.
Well, that's a relief because your guy's in a body bag and he sure looks dead.
Cap.
Good job, Mikey.
Hey, look, young boy, seriously, like, let me tell you something. You need to stay in a child's place, all right?
Spare me the street knowledge, Grandpa. Nobody asked you.
Look, just because I fucked your mother, don't make me your grandpa, all right?
Oh, that's enough.
Yeah.
That's enough. Stop, all right?
Got me fucked
Oh,
up.
Dad.
You
Stand
go-
down. Let's
you better
go.
go on.
Let's go.
I will knock your bitch ass clean the fuck
Knock me out. Hit me.
What am I, a nursery school teacher? Come on, let's go.
Shit. I got time today.
And we're back.
Sup?
It's time to talk about new comics, and we're gonna just jump right in because somehow, I don't know why I say somehow because it literally always happens to us. Something's wrong with us. We're at 42 minutes already, and we've got a lot to talk about. So we are going to talk about the new miniseries from Mark Millar at Netflix. Is how it's taglined.
Wait, really?
If you go to the first page, there's a little thing at the bottom that says created by Mark Millar at Netflix. It was the weirdest thing ever.
Has he gotten any? Has he gotten any?
Well, that's the weirdest thing. So the deal was like 2018 or something.
Has he
he's
actually produced
made
anything?
2 shows: Jupiter's Legacy that nobody watched, and an anime of another thing that I'd never heard of. So it's not been a great investment from Netflix.
And I don't think we can count Jupiter's Legacy because that was already an established comic book at the time.
Yeah, so his anime of Super Crooks, which is a comic book I've never.
Was that him? I keep seeing that on my dashboard. I don't want to watch it.
Yes, it is. It is credited as based on a Mark Millar comic book. So,
All right. Well,
but today we're talking about King of Spies, the first in a 4-issue miniseries from the man himself.
yeah.
Corey, what do you think of this first issue?
Well, to break it down, what the basic book is that we basically find James Bond. It's not actually James Bond, but we basically find James Bond in his 60s in England. He's a bit depressed about his life and the kids that he left behind, and getting towards the end of his life, and he's just like miserable about it. He suddenly finds out that he has 6 months to live, and what he decides to do with the rest of his time is to basically right the wrongs of everything that he's done throughout his career as a spy. And I didn't hate it, but I damn sure did not like it.
Yeah, I mean, this is the Mark Millar experience, I think, in a nutshell. And
Because that concept, saying it out loud, sounds pretty cool.
cool idea, definitely cool idea. I mean, that's undeniable. I do think that once again he proves himself to be a man with better ideas than execution, because the writing in this book is not great. I mean, there are moments in this book that I had to reread 4 or 5 times because I don't even understand the chronology of some of these things.
Yeah, it's the chronology, and then we're kind of just like left out with like some like which like a lot of things we're supposed to take at face value. Like when he's like, we're doing the book starts up with a very it's well drawn. I think this book is very well drawn. And I want to put that out there. I think the art is fantastic, but I think the writing kind of messes with, as you said, the storytelling of it, because I do lose track of what the hell's happening sometimes. Like
Also,
in the beginning. Sorry, please continue.
I just think the idea that this is going to be 4 issues is weird to me.
Yeah, because
how are we going to get a story in 3 more issues?
Yeah, the pacing in this book is not great. I can see what he wrote down, being like, you got your intro to his flashback, cool spy stuff. You got to find him when he's old, and then you got to end with his mission statement or whatever. But there's like, it's a lot of just padding. It's a lot of padding with shit that like we don't necessarily need. It's like things that we don't really think. I don't really think anything that I've read is going to lead to any successful payoff. I mean, I think honestly all you really should do is just go on a straight up just murder mission. But I don't know. I feel it's kind of all over the place, and I kind of feel like the end goal, him just trying to right his wrongs, is such a weird thing to do in 4 issues. That feels like you're gonna like start. This is gonna be like a comic book series with multiple arcs. But
Well,
like,
I think. Sorry, no, go ahead.
no, I'm just saying. I think that a lot of things that like they introduced, it's just meh.
Yeah, I think the problem with Millar's work now, not that there was a lot great to say about it in the past, but the biggest problem now is that he's no longer writing comic books. He's writing spec
Pitches.
scripts.
Yeah, exactly.
And this is the beginning of an idea for a Netflix show, which is why it paces the way it does. This is why I think the characters are constructed the way they are, because we don't really know anything about any of these characters after the first issue, except for what their jobs are and like what their names are. But we don't get any character introduction. We see a man commit like a mass murder in a bathroom and walk out.
Insane.
And there's no consequences, and it's not really addressed why he can do that.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, I thought maybe like this is gonna be like kind of some secret society like a la Kingsman that he also wrote situation.
Right.
But I guess, I mean, that's 100% what it is, though. It's just like he writes cool concepts, and that someone else can take his idea and just make it better.
Yeah, and I think that's why Netflix bought the rights to his catalog, is because they know that floating around there is a lot of cool ideas for shows and movies, and maybe if you remove them from the Mark Millar of it all, you get something really compelling. I don't know. It's hard to say after reading this first issue of King of Spies if this will give us a good TV show, because, like I said, there's nothing here. There's nothing to grasp onto. It's sort of devoid of anything. We get a couple cool moments, but
this is the worst version of. This is the worst version of our Human Target.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It also is. It's really unfortunate timing for Mark Millar is that it comes out next to a show that's a comic book that is actually not that similar, but is similar enough and recent enough that it feels like, because it's so I don't even think we said, but basically the concept is this guy has cancer, he's going to die in 6 months.
Yeah.
And he, in his sort of, in a kamikaze way, he's going to take all of these evil people with him.
So vague.
I just don't care about any. It's so
they don't have like a bad guy they set up either. There's like, it's just like, and it feels so like, this is for men, kind of. I don't really know a better word for it. It just feels very like manly man saving women from getting their drinks knocked over. It just
by killing people, by the way.
This would fail the Bechdel test. I don't think that there's
to read a bunch of the Mark Millar books and figure out which ones pass the Bechdel test, because I think it's probably none of them.
I don't think any of them. Also, there's like, okay, another shitty thing about it is like there's no none of the characters in this book. We have like one character, and everyone else is just like a stand-in exposition point.
Yeah.
The women are there for him to either save or have sex with. The other men there are just to talk about how great they are. It's so weird. It's just
he has a very odd relationship to women, as we've always talked about. It's one of the most unsettling or
I mean, he had a what
parts of his books.
He almost had a magazine called Clint Magazine. Yeah. And
who is the pilot that he's gonna have sex with? Did he know her before this?
That's what I was so confused about it, because they were like the Americans with them, and I thought the American was like working with them, like working with the bad guys, and it's like, oh, that person's corrupt, and then they start having sex. Weird. And then like the next scene, also it's like I don't understand why writers Or like, this guy has a lot of sex, that means you like him. Like, when we cut forward to him in the future, he's having sex with a woman who's cheating on her husband.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna be like, yeah, this guy's a good guy. I'm rooting for this guy. Like, fuck off. I don't give a shit.
Yeah, I mean, that is the, I mean, as I always said, Mark Millar writes comic books for 13-year-olds.
Yeah, this is a third.
Boys specifically.
This is when Che and Cory read Wanted. This is the kind of shit that they.
I loved Wanted.
This is the shit. We would have loved this when we were like 13, 14. Fucking
I
would
don't
have
even know
loved
if
this.
I would have loved this. This is like, it's just sort of it's such a mess. There's
It is a
nothing
mess.
here to grasp onto. There's no plot. Maybe when the 4 issues are done, we'll look back and be like, cool idea. I don't think we're ever going to say this is a good book.
Do we think, Che, what's the last time you finished a Mark Millar book?
Huck.
Huck was good though.
Huck, which is, well, that's the last time. Huck was what?
That was a long time ago.
Huck was 2016. So
Ooh, shit. Was that recent? Oh, I thought it was a lot older.
I think it ended in 2016. Probably started in like 2015. So.
But yeah, I mean, like, I honestly cannot think of like the last time that I've gone through like a Mark Millar original comic that I finished out. We kind of.
He doesn't write stuff for us. He doesn't write stuff that he doesn't care that we don't read his books. I read the first issue. We talked about in this, that Prodigy book, which is again like probably in a.
I think it's already gotten picked up for a TV show.
Black Spy, Super Genius, Cool Eye. Like,
I can't get over the chess scene. I straight up can.
No, he's just a bad
I think
writer.
about the chess scene from time and time again, just to be like, that was so stupid. What were we thinking?
The next thing that is going to be that's coming to Netflix is going to be his Magic Order TV show. I've read a couple issues of the Magic Order. I won't say I'm all cut up. I will probably finish it in preparation for the show, but again, it's just he's no longer writing comic books. I mean, even that book that came out last year, that I think we kind of liked the first issue, despite the fact that I think it went way off the rails near the end. Was that Space Bandits book for Image?
Oh yeah, I remember that book. Yeah. He writes. I mean, I think it's like not a bad life as a comic book writer though. He writes short trades.
Yeah.
And pitches the idea. Like, he doesn't actually write ongoing series anymore.
He's got himself a great deal, both with
Which is the
Image
thing, though,
and
like,
with Netflix. It's a great deal.
Because then also we do get some, like, he does like some really good films that come out of it, like Kingsman. And
It doesn't have anything to do with those, though, right?
No, but that's what I'm saying though. That's a crazy thing. That's the only reason I think he's still like doing this is because people are like, oh, this is the guy who did Wanted in Kick-Ass, and this is in Kingsman, so he must be doing well. But it's just like those ideas were interesting. Like Kick-Ass was like interesting comic book idea where you have a realistic approach to what if like a nerdy teenager tried to become a superhero. That's an interesting idea. Execution's not great.
No.
Because it's kind of just fall again, where he doesn't write it well. He uses women as plot points, and it's just, I don't know. I think the only woman character he's ever written well was a fucking 13-year-old girl who curses too much. Hit
Right.
Girl.
And even talking about the movies, I mean, the only one that's even really closely related to his source material is Kick-Ass.
Kingsman is also a really bad comic.
Kingsman is fucking terrible. I bought
It's
it after the movie
fucking
thinking it was
horrible.
going to be sick, and it's terrible.
Yeah, and the Kick-Ass comic was pretty good, but then it kept on going and going, and then it got bad.
Although it got good again when he stopped writing it. I love the
Hit Girl
books from Image right now, that they just do like a anthology thing with new writers every month or so.
I have not watched. I never saw Kick-Ass 2 just because I accidentally forgot about it, but apparently it was like not great. I still don't understand why they didn't just make I don't understand why they just didn't make a Hit Girl movie. I think you should have just went to a Hit Girl movie.
Kick-Ass 2 is kind of a Hit Girl movie.
Oh, okay, fine.
Yeah.
One of Nicolas Cage's best performances, I will, as being weird violent Batman.
Yeah. Speaking of Nicolas Cage, above Dev Patel in the current odds for his movie Pig, which I'm not going to pretend like I've seen.
Yeah, no, but everyone I've talked to really likes that movie.
I don't care. Everyone that saw that movie Mandy really liked it. I don't like Nicolas Cage. I don't like his like weird.
You
stage.
liar! You enjoyed watching Airplane that one time.
Enjoy watching what?
Remember we watched Airplane?
Airplane.
Yeah, not Airplane.
Con Air.
Con Air. Holy shit! I had a brain fart.
I was like, Nicolas Cage is not in Airplane.
I was like Airplane. I'm like, wait a second. That's
Also,
not
I
right.
definitely did not enjoy watching Con Air. What are you
Con Air
talking
was fun to watch. It was stupid as hell.
Yeah, because Steve Buscemi's absolutely wild in that movie.
Just
Also,
fucking
Steve Buscemi just escapes at the end, by the way.
He's like the worst criminal. He's just like loose.
Yeah. All right.
Kind of let
Next
that
up,
one slide.
Now on to a writer.
This is worse.
That makes Mark Millar look like fucking Tom King. Brian Michael Bendis has moved his Jinx World line to Dark Horse. I wonder, after reading this book, if it was voluntary or not.
I don't believe it was. I think they were selling so bad that they were like, we don't want to do this anymore. I'm not
sure. They were
sure.
selling bad? I wonder if they were selling bad or not.
I don't really know anybody now. My comic book shop is very good about it, like having random titles. Even though they were in the DC, they sometimes will have like the offshoot books on shelves. They'll usually have like the offshoot books more than the regular ongoings. I never saw a single Bendis book on the shelves. Even at the big shop, like Forbidden Planet in Manhattan, never saw any of the new Bendis books on the shelves.
Remember Pearl?
I try to forget.
It's one of the worst things I've ever read.
And
it went on for so long.
What was the name of that one book where like it's like the comic book writer who's like a spy or whatever?
Cover.
And I think Cover wasn't a bad idea. I actually kind of
Cover
like
was just not bad in comparison to the rest of the stuff, but it's not good either.
Yeah, no, I mean like we kind of talked about it at the beginning, but it's like Bendis was one of my favorite writers. I think Brian Michael Bendis was one of my favorite writers, and I think I don't exactly know when, but like sometime pre-mid 2010s, he was fucking, everything he did was awesome.
Yeah,
and then
it's
something
so
happened.
weird. It's so weird.
Something happened, and I don't know. I think it was like around maybe Avengers versus X-Men or some shit. I don't know what happened, but it got real fucking bad. And
there isn't really evidence of this. Like, the reason I put this on the list is, one, I thought it'd be hilarious to shit on how bad this book is. This book is, by the way, Joy Operations, the first book under the Jinx World label for Dark Horse. It is. I was gonna try to say what happens in this book, but I actually don't know. I read it. And I don't. So there's a.
Okay, I can read the. I'll read the description of the book just to kind of like shave us some time. 45 years from now, Joy is an envoy, a special agent of one of the Jonanda Trust. Trust are corporate-owned cities that are the centerpiece of modern society. She rights wrongs for the trust. She is excellent, perfection. Oh my God. Who wrote this? Hard on herself.
He wrote it. What do you mean who wrote it? He wrote it, obviously.
Driven, almost legendary in some parts, until one day a voice pops into her head trying to get her to betray everything she has ever believed in. That was one of the worst. That was that little paragraph. That was from the official Dark Horse website.
I didn't realize this was supposed to be 45 years in the future.
This was like 40. I know. Sorry, I said it out loud.
Yeah, for people who are watching the video, you can see, if you haven't read the comic book, you can see what Bendis thinks 45 years in the future looks like.
It's insane.
I mean, we have talked about Bendis' book before. Obviously, most infamously on the podcast is Pearl. I think, like I just said, one of the worst things I've ever read. It seems like what happened, and this is the only explanation I could think, is that Bendis has been locked in somebody's basement for the last 20 years and hasn't spoken to another human, and thus has forgotten how two people talk to each other.
Well, Che, I mean, like, we can do a Bendis conversation. It's just like when you say something, I repeat it, and then you're like, "What did you?" Like, it's just like kind of say something.
This book is terrible.
This book is terrible. And then you're like, "Yeah, this book is terrible." I'm like, "What do you mean this book is terrible?" The book is terrible. Why is it terrible? It's just terrible, and it's just that. It's just that over and over again. It's like
kind of sad. It kind of makes me sad.
It uses like, I mean, there is Bendis talk, and I didn't realize what it really was until, because back in the day, it's kind of like how Quentin Tarantino would do conversation. He'd be like, this is just his style. Right. And that was just Bendis' style. And then at some point he flanderized himself, and it just became it just became horrible.
Well, even the like, I think the thing that bugs me the most is not the repeating or the like stilted conversations. It's the two things that bother me the most, and they show up so much in Joy Operation. Is one, he will just create so much stuff. Like this first book, every other bubble has like a new word in there that he's invented, and it makes following the conversation impossible. So I'm just gonna read. I'm gonna pick up just a random scene. I'm gonna read this. This is, I don't know what they're supposed to be. I guess they're bodyguards. They're
They don't explain anything in this book, guys. They don't explain shit. It's like, I get sci-fi is supposed to be like, you're thrown in something and you kind of will like.
Too much sci-fi all at once.
That's what I'm saying.
Much.
Like, there's like no room to breathe. There's
I'm just gonna
no. Please, I'm
read
sorry.
This random sentence. We'll go through the trust views and make our report off of that, and we'll reach if. Oh my God, it's just hard to read. And we'll reach if we need anything extra. I'm a huge admirer of what you. I guess it's envoys, of what you envoys do to keep Catherine Mentus safe and her Janado vision alive. We know it's envoys like you who do the real work making this place what it is. Verdam, thank you. Aw, do you have a home pod? I do. That's actually fucking sweet. Good luck, stay safe. Just so you guys know, for those of you who didn't read the book, none of those words make any more sense to us that we've read the book. They're not explained.
I kind of blacked out for a little bit. What happened?
I don't. So that just to kind of come. There's trust views. Don't know what that is.
Don't know what that is.
We don't really know what an envoy is. I guess it's what an actual envoy is, just spelled weird.
What was up with that weird tentacle monster that kind of popped up for a little bit? Like, that just kind of showed up.
What are they called? Granthrax?
Whatever, fuck, I don't fucking know, man. Shit. I was gonna point out like the really bad piece of writing when they were like talking about when we like kind of like cut to our main character's boss.
Yeah.
Let me read out what this introduction for this character. She's mad. Oh really? Do they know who the fuck they are dealing with? Fuck those old fuckers. So they're gonna get together and try to burn my ass at the stake? These old fuckers will do anything to stay in power. Fuck them all. Joy, bring me some heads. Upstate. I'm sure he felt really good about that last part.
Well, it's also, at that point in the book, we don't know that this is not our main character, not a voiceover by our main character.
Yeah, we don't. Like, and also, but here's my other thing about that, too, that scene is, because we get this horrible, like, because they talk about that character, the page beforehand, and they give this way too much exposition. The, Che, if you want to show the scene, page 18.
Page 18.
Where it's this one, but like, it's like this, like all this explanation about who she is and all this stuff like that, and then they add in that weird the next page because they don't even need to include that. That's the weirdest part about it is you just dump so much exposition on it, and if they wanted me to do one or the other, they could have been like exposition, don't show her, or just have shown that she's fucking crazy. But he does both because he just it's just bad. It's so bad. It's just real bad.
It's a combination of all of my least favorite writing crutches, which is voiceover, exposition, tonal, disregard for complete tonal, how people interact with each other. I mean, when we see those guards, like that scene I just read, when those guards or whatever the fuck they're supposed to be show up, they introduce themselves. It's just such a small thing, but it's just clear he doesn't understand how this works. They introduce themselves like, "Hi!" ! We're Palais from one section over, which is not how. Like, it's not how
anybody talks.
Who are like authoritative figures, like police officers, bodyguards. Again, it's not clear what these things are supposed to be, but there's some sort of security service. Talk to people, and I'm fascinated by Bendis. I also just thought it'd be really funny to show this book, but I just don't understand how a man who, even if you don't think Bendis was like the greatest comic writer of all time, wrote some pretty good fun comics to read. How could he have become this?
Daredevil, Alias, his Avengers runs, fantastic comics. What the fuck happened? Like, this is just like even the basic of like. Listen, I'll forgive dialogue. Listen, people's dialogue. Hey, listen, some people lose it. Some people don't have that anymore. But the storytelling in this, just the bare bones storytelling in this for one issue. Because at the end of it, like, when her arm, like, takes over it, when the voice in her head, it doesn't make any sense, guys, even if you read it. Like, it's treated at this whole moment, I'm like, oh my god, what's going to happen next? But I'm like, she holds up a weapon. I'm like, I don't know what that weapon is. I don't know what the fuck this is. Like, he can control one of her arms. Oh no. Who's his voice in her head? Is it an actual person? Is it an AI? You're using all these words to just tell me so much shit that I don't even have a way to perceive it yet, without giving me the bare bones information. Who is Joy? Who is his voice in her head? Just like, I don't think it's supposed to be a mystery if you're telling me, if you kind of try to spell it out beforehand.
I always think it's funny.
It sucks. This sucked. This book was shit. This was a bad comic book.
It's really bad. Bendis has said on the record that some of his biggest influence in comic books are Frank Miller and Alan Moore, and some of his best influences outside of comics are David Mamet and Aaron Sorkin. I don't understand how somebody who is trying to model themselves after those four writers could ever write something like that.
Actually, I can kind of see a more modern Frank Miller combined with Aaron Sorkin making Bendis. That kind of makes sense to me.
But even if you have issues with Frank Miller, which I definitely do, don't get me wrong, the man knows how to write a fucking line of dialogue.
Absolutely.
I mean, that book, what was it? The 2019 book, the Dark Knight Returns, the Golden Child or something. Remember that book?
Yeah, I remember that was real bad.
But it was bad, not in the way that this is bad.
No.
People spoke to each other like human beings.
Yeah, it was comic books. Yeah, it's like I don't know what it is. I think Bendis has like completely lost it at some point. Like his DC runs have made me stop reading books. Like I straight up like stopped reading Justice League when he took over because I just couldn't handle it.
Did you ever finish Checkmate?
No. You know what?
I kind of want to.
You know what was like? I think I was so genuinely hoping that the Young Justice run that he did was going to be good because those characters are some of my favorites. He's so good at writing team books.
Yeah.
And a bunch of fun characters that are really good at working back and forth off one another. And it was bad. It's just.
I mean, he continues to write a lot of shit. That's the other thing is he's very prolific. We don't talk about him a lot on this podcast, mostly because it's fucking terrible. But I mean, he has Dial H for Hero that was coming out recently. All his Jinx World stuff. He had up until very recently a bunch of DC books. He writes a lot of stuff. Infinite Frontier, Leviathan, Dawn.
But I'm saying, like, when's the last time any of this shit was good though?
No, it's not. I mean,
and I gotta imagine at some point, like something, his name is gonna start becoming more of a don't buy this rather than buy it.
I mean, I think we've already seen that. I mean, the fact that he has moved over to Dark Horse, and listen, Dark Horse has released some amazing stuff. We talked about them on this podcast. They are not DC for a reason.
No, there's a reason. It's the big two, and then the third one is now Image Comics. It's not Dark Horse.
Right.
Dark Horse has Hellboy, and I mean Dark Horse is just Mike Mignola and some other people.
And Jeff Lemire drops some.
Oh, I forgot that Black Hammer's on.
Stuff,
I forgot that
Black
shit.
Hammer in the Maze book, which I'm really loving still.
I forget about Lemire not being at Image.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's move on to some much better books. At first I thought it was gonna be really a lot of fun, and I will be honest, I did have some fun. But Jesus Christ, is it sad that this guy is just? I don't even know. I don't even know what it is. But Cory,
I'm sorry. I had to look at somebody else's like review of this. I was just kind of curious, and then how I know I'll just never trust CBR.com ever again.
Yeah.
Joy Operation #1 is an intriguing start to a new sci-fi series. With Bendis at the helm, there will certainly be more surprises to come.
I don't understand that.
No, I don't get how you read this and were like, I have a good opinion off of this.
Well, I also that's why when you said like his DC stuff wasn't selling well, the one thing that this is odd for two people who have a essentially comic book podcast. I think people who read comic books are lame. Like when I go to the comic book shop and have to interact with people, it makes my skin crawl. And I would not be surprised if there is a large segment of comic book fans who really love Bendis books still.
Not the online.
It would not
community.
shock me.
At least not the things I've seen on the online community.
I hope. I mean, it is pretty hard, even as somebody with shitty taste, to justify these books. These are not just bad. They're
it's just yeah.
fantastically bad.
That's a very fair point because I think the comic book shop I go to is half a record shop, so I think everyone there is kind of weird from the get go. I don't necessarily interact with people who read like superhero books on a regular basis in person.
I've told you off the record this will never see the light of day because people know what comic book I go to. What shop I go to a little bit. Some of the people I've talked to in there have told me some truly heinous shit about.
You have expressed to me some of the books I recommended, and I was like, you should stop shopping. You should stop shopping them.
Yeah.
It's like,
let's move on.
Imagine going to a library and the library. I'm like, librarian, what should I read? And the librarian gives you a fucking horrendous book. You're like, I don't want to go back to that library again. The librarian has bad taste.
This is a small aside that probably I shouldn't do because we're an hour and 10 minutes in the podcast. But
Who gives?
I was talking about a friend who she has started going to like this weekly movie club thing with some friends. She's not a big movie watcher, and most of her friends aren't. But apparently her roommate is. or at least fancies themselves a big movie watcher. And she told me as like the movie guy. I'm the movie guy to all my friends. It's a little bit of a pain in the
You have a podcast about it, man.
Yeah.
You have a podcast. You gotta at some point. You just gotta understand who you
I
are.
know. But she told me about how she was very annoyed because they went to go see House of Gucci. This person kept talking about like, not during the movie, but like just kept like afterward giving their opinions. And one of her opinions was that Steven Soderbergh should have directed this movie, which is the opinion of somebody who has seen like 6 movies. Like, doesn't really understand movies because House of Gucci, directed by Ridley Scott, who was having quite an interesting year. I absolutely loved the last Duel. The House of Gucci, not as good as The Last Duel, but it's not a movie that's basically anything like anything Steven Soderbergh's ever directed. It's like not close to anything he's ever directed. So it's just that's how I feel about most comic book fans, who they're like they've read like the same sort of thing over and over again. So all of their opinions are based on this exact thing. And this
that's how comics get started, when they started like introducing. I mean, that's when they started shifting the formula and introducing characters of different cultures, different ideologies. Realizing the political spectrum has definitely shifted. Their stories became different because the world around them was different, and they just couldn't accept being in a little bubble that it was no longer that. But that one person is a stupid. What Steven Soderbergh movie would they even like in reference? Like what would they be like?
I want to talk to that person because that's like I said, they're a friend of a friend. I want to have it like.
I think Quentin Tarantino
do they really
should
want
direct
House of Gucci to be like
Gone
Ocean's
Girl?
11 or something? Like what were they thinking?
Yeah, I don't
know. It doesn't matter.
That's a 20-year-old movie. Do you feel old yet?
Well, listen, I am old, so.
No, I'm not. Young at heart.
Off to Amazing Fantasy, the Carrie Andrews.
I think
I should have written his name down.
This is why you're just way too confident with the one when you start
Carrie
saying
Andrews.
There
It's
you
the
go.
Carrie Andrews book, art by Brian Reber, and it is a miniseries that just wrapped up.
Sorry,
I think we talked about the first issue, right?
We did talk about the first issue. Yes, I remember this. I hate to like cut in, but it's Carrie Andrews actually did the writing and the art.
And I'm sorry.
Color by Brian Rebar.
Brian Reber just the.
And I'm just gonna go down the list then. And letterer by VC's Joe Sabino.
Do you know? I should have probably looked it up after all these years of it being on like every book. Do you know what VC is?
Nope. I've never seen that before. What is that?
Really? Like 90% of letterers, there's like VC's somebody.
Maybe it's just a company.
But why is there a company of letterers?
I don't know.
I think Clayton Cowell is also VC's Clayton Cowell's. I think.
This is not the time or place to be figuring this out.
Sorry. But Corey, what'd you think of this Elseworlds Marvel book? I'm kind of bummed that it was only 5 issues. I'm also annoyed we had to watch Ben die again.
It's
no
Uncle Ben for reference. I thought, okay, so for the general gist of what Amazing Fantasy is, because I thought it was a pretty decent miniseries. Amazing Fantasy is a Marvel book where a bunch of superheroes, Captain America, Spider-Man, Black Widow, Storm, all die in their like individual universes, and they all wake up on this afterlife fantasy world with giant monsters. Very throwback to the whole like pulp Conan the Barbarian type of like vibe. And what was my original point about it? But yeah, I mean, that's basically what the concept of the book was. And we have a 5-issue miniseries of them kind of like going into a battle. We have Captain America on his own little faction with like protecting this weird tribe from getting eaten by trolls, and you got Spider-Man.
I was trying to remember. There's something sort of like that where there's like this weird tribe of women who have been like sort of taken over by a crazy man, and I couldn't remember. Do you know what I'm talking about? It's not from a comic book. It's from like a movie. And this is I think a reference to that movie, and I could not remember what the hell it is.
I mean, I think it's definitely very tropey.
Yeah. I think intentionally so. I think Andrews is definitely borrowing from
and I think that's
lot of famous fantasy ideas and famous fantasy works too.
And I think, that's a very fun way to look at the book, though. It's just like they took the very famous Amazing Fantasy comic book title, and they were like, let's just make a book using what we can to actually tell a fantasy story. Yeah. And in a way, I mean, like, we kind of see a very similar thing happening at DC with their hard fantasy Tom Taylor book. I think it's like Dark Knights or whatever.
Dark Knights of Steel? Knights of Steel?
I think so. That sounds right. That sounds right. And I think this is a very, like, kind of like different thing to do with that concept very well. But what did you think of it, Che?
Like I said, I might really, once again, I think if this is the only bad thing I have to say about something, it means it's good. I'm just kind of annoyed this is only 6 issues or 5 issues.
Me too.
I've really missed Cary Andrews' work. I mean, possibly he's done stuff that I've missed, but I think one of the first comic books we ever talked about on this podcast was his work from, I guess, 2016 at this point, is Renato Jones, The 1%, which is a truly insane book about a guy who just kills rich people. It's tons of fun.
I forgot about that book.
Yeah.
You love that book.
Really couldn't be more different than Amazing Fantasy, honestly.
A bit different.
But I kind of love this idea. When we read the first issue, I think we both said that we wished Marvel would do more stuff like this, where you just have all these great characters, just throw them in a bunch of different, like, next one should just be Amazing Space Travel or whatever. I don't know what to call that, but
I don't. I mean, at the end of this,
these guys in a spaceship or something.
At the end of this book, I thought they really were like leading into going into like an Amazing Fantasy 2 series with like Wolverine, and I'm like,
I mean, they might.
I hope they do, but I was thinking like Wolverine is perfect for this setting. It's like this is just a really fun setting to throw Wolverine into. But I mean, that's why these Elseworlds books work so well, because they have these really good characters, and making these very different shifts to their stories leads to something really cool.
And you can also introduce like the villains in this book are really, really fun.
Yeah, because like none of the villains are
what the hell they're called.
I don't remember either. But the villains in this book are very like pure fantasy villains. They're not from like any kind of established Marvel thing. They're like, it's just the Marvel characters thrown into this very insane high fantasy world. Yeah. And I thought the miniseries was good. I definitely think there definitely should have been a little bit more room.
Yes, I think, especially to explore Peter's story. Peter Parker.
Yes.
He gets like a love interest that I think is pretty rushed. I guess love is not the right word. He gets a woman that kisses him.
Yeah, so you got to get dies. a big Amazon woman likes the tiny man trope. Yeah. And then she dies, but it was kind of like unclear how like that she died for a second. I was like, oh, I guess she's dead.
So she just dies in a fight, right? We get a bunch of
and then we get that weird
flashes of action sequences, and then she's on the floor dead.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. I think Captain America's story was pretty well fleshed out in this. Black Widow's story was pretty well handled. Storm's story was kind of forgotten, unfortunately.
Storm is like not really.
Storm's not actually a character. Yeah, I think she ends up being just a power source at the very end of it. But like this was like I thought this was gonna be a lot more of a Spider-Man book, and there's things that happen to Spider-Man. But
I think it's supposed to be a Spider-Man book. I mean, the climactic end of this book is all Spider-Man. We get that.
Yeah. But I think
it like a flashback or like a vision of him watching Uncle Ben. It's not in a flashback.
I just felt like there was
Ben died.
I felt that was a bit too much to throw into the last issue. I thought
stop killing Uncle Ben, guys.
Yeah, I thought his storyline was like a lot really interesting. I think there could have been like one more issue to kind of flesh out what the fuck happened with Spider-Man. Because when I hit the end of it, I'm like, oh, what the fuck was that all? What the hell was that all about? Why can Wolverine, whenever he dies, comes back and be like, hey, I'm back, I'm here again? That was a bit. But
I would have liked to see. I mean, as much as I really loved Captain America's story, like you said, I think when he gets to the village and punches the troll man in the face, it's a lot of fun.
I could have read Captain America in a fantasy world, honestly.
Well, the thing is, I think, I don't know what the motivation is behind it. Maybe Andrews didn't really have. He only had he only could do 5 issues or whatever. But I would have loved to see this book explore either one of these storylines. Just leave it at that. Like just having Black Widow or just Peter Parker or just Captain America would have been. I think we could have explored this world a lot more interesting. And I kind of love the every time Peter's interacting with Uncle Ben is my favorite parts of this book. I think that's the most interesting character development stuff.
Yeah, Uncle Ben is also a very interesting character in this as well.
Kind of the line where he's like, you're flying around like an idiot. Kind of harsh. I mean, not something. I mean, especially because of how big of a motivation it is for
this Uncle Ben's. I mean, it's another thing about these Elseworld stories where it's not exactly the same, and we kind of saw that with Dark Knights of Steel too, where the end scene of it is very like this isn't exactly what like just putting a Batman in a fantasy world. This Uncle Ben's kind of different, and he's kind of a dick and not a great person. But I like when
Uncle Ben is kind of a dick and not a great person. We don't know.
Hey, hold on now. Let's calm that. Uncle Ben is the only thing that stays dead, and Batman's parents come back sometimes actually.
Do they?
I mean, you have remember like Flashpoint. Batman's dad was running around and then he was part of the murdering of Alfred. Thanks, Tom.
Did you ever play the Telltale Batman game?
No, I didn't.
Batman's dad is like a criminal.
No, I didn't, but now I kind of want to play that.
It's a big swing by Telltale.
It's weird. It's
also
always...
shout out to the art in this book.
Oh, fantastic!
Andrews is a fantastic artist.
I would like to see some more. I mean, I would love for this like concept to be tackled again, but I think I would rather it be less moving parts. I think that's
either less moving parts or just a longer. Like if this was 15 issues.
Yeah, I think this could have worked. I think that would have worked very well.
But I know for Marvel, it's tough to. We've always said it is tough for Marvel to justify writing books that are not going to become movies. This is not going to be a movie. It's not going to be a Disney Plus show anytime soon. It might be a what if episode in season 2 or something.
I could see a what if episode.
Yeah.
I don't actually know what the what if question would be.
What if you were resurrected on a fantasy island?
What if you were in that Mark Millar comic Reborn?
Never read it.
We read the first issue.
Did we?
Yep, way back when.
No recollection.
And we were like, "This is a good. This isn't bad. Maybe we'll come back to it." And we both completely forgot about it.
That sounds about right. All right, should we close out this comic book section?
Yeah, we are very heavy on time. We should definitely keep it moving.
All right.
If you're watching the video, guys, my eyes are just very dry. I'm not crying or anything.
He's crying because it's over. Amazing Fantasy's over. All right, next up we have Made in Korea. What an absolutely batshit ending to this book. Started off real interesting concept.
What?
I was all on board.
What the fuck happened in this book?
I think he turned it into like an allegory for like isolation and depression and like school shootings.
Yeah, the school shootings part was kind of like out of nowhere, I felt.
Yeah. It is very weird. It is very bad shit. I still really enjoy this book. I think this book's kind of fun.
I think it's fun. I think the art's very cool too. I think it's like, I love a good like AI story. I like a very good, well done AI story. I think this is what it is. And he could have made a very simple they want to be real and they try to like figure out a way to be real. And and they kind of do tackle it a little bit in it. But
I think the biggest fault of this book is like literally just like the last 3 pages. I don't really know why he decided to close out this book like this. Also, the He is a story by Jeremy Holt. For those of you who don't know, art by George Shaw. And the story of Made in Korea is, for those of you who didn't listen to the episode where we talked about the first issue, basically a world in which people don't have kids anymore, which weirdly is not that relevant going forward after the first issue. I kind of forgot that's why these proxies or whatever they're called exist. So that now that nobody has kids anymore, there's a company that makes lifelike AI versions of children, and a specific AI child gets delivered to a American family, and it turns out that one robot has like actual artificial intelligence in it, and then it goes as badly as you would think it goes, including their
No. Don't say as bad as you think it could go. Because there's a lot of left turns in here, Che. Where you're like, oh, this kid's going to learn. It's going to be kind of hard. It's going to be bullied. Instead of like when she goes to school because she's smarter than everybody else and she wants to go to high school. Turns out the kid doesn't get bullied. It gets pretty much tricked into being an accomplice in a school shooting.
Well, after getting bullied.
After getting bullied, yeah.
Gets bullied first, becomes the accomplice in a school shooting, rips off said school shooter's arms.
Yes.
That scene's crazy.
Yeah, the book goes from 0 to 100 very, very quickly.
Which one's more fucked up? When she rips off that guy's arms, or when she, I guess, crushes the other guy's head while yelling, "I said stop laughing," which is more dark.
I said start. I think it's like I said stop laughing just from like a very
It's fucked up, man.
yeah, it's fucked up. And then after that, she gets picked up by her like a creator who's like from Korea, taken back to Korea. Apparently, it's his dead. Apparently, it's his dead kid's like intelligence. They kind of glaze over that one kind of quickly.
Yeah, again, a thing that seems like it should be a very big part of the story is a couple lines and doesn't come back again.
Doesn't come back again. And then like we see them kind of interacting in a normal thing. And then like we have a weird cut to of like the little girl AI robot looking at like a picture of a man, which does come up again in the end. And I still am unsure how to feel about that. Because I don't know if it was intentional, if it's supposed to be an allegory for trans peoples. I think
if it is an allegory for trans people, it's pretty ham-fisted and
it's pretty ham-fisted. Yeah, it's not pretty ham-fisted, not built up at all. And I
think it's just a coincidence that the robot it inhabits at the end is a male robot versus the female child she was, because she talks about wanting to grow up, and the whole thing is obviously she can't grow because she's a robot. Like she won't ever age or become.
But like no, but like they have that one shot when they're clothing shopping, and she doesn't want to wear dresses, and then like she and then she looks at the portrait. I mean the poster of the guy. So I think it was intentional. I think it was intentional for her to, because if it wasn't intentional, she would have came back with in a woman's. They would have came back in a woman's body.
I hope.
I don't know what the fuck that ending was.
I hope it's not a.
Yeah.
I hope it's.
I don't see any. I don't see any other reason why it wouldn't be.
It's completely unearned, and it's like maybe there's nothing else in this book about trans people or trans rights. I mean, I guess do you call robots she? Either way, just for ease of explanation, she cuts her hair in a way that makes her look like a young boy instead of a young girl. Before.
No, okay, no. It must be on purpose because it ends with "It's good to have you home, son."
Well, he is in a body of a man now.
But
like,
that's what, but I'm saying like that's like they wouldn't have included the son part unless like I don't think it was like I think it's 100% intentional, and I don't think it was handled well, but I don't think it should detract from the entire book as itself. I'm just a bit confused by the last two issues. I don't know.
The last issue in particular is very strange. When I got to the last page, I literally had to like flip back to make sure I hadn't skipped a massive chunk of it. It's sort of nothing happens, and then it's all over all of a sudden. It's very weird. The art is absolutely fantastic, so there's that. I mean, I love the art in the last issue is probably my favorite of the book. We get that sequence where the AI, which again I don't think has a name, was like 435 whatever, is like breaking out of their consciousness or something.
It's Jesse.
Jesse, there you sorry.
Their name Jesse.
Jesse is like breaking out of their consciousness is a great sequence after she's getting like rebooted. I kind of love those 2 pages. But
like it does like where did the whole transcendent AI God thing come from? I don't want to tear down. I don't want to because I think this was a good book. I feel like I'm just tearing it down, and I feel kind of bad. But
no. I think there's listen. It is not something that's not perfect by any stretch. I think it's once again sort of like Amazing Fantasy, but in a different way. I just wanted more of Amazing Fantasy. I think this book needed more issues.
Yeah, I feel like I don't know. I feel like the I don't think the school shooter plot line was necessary. Honestly, I feel like it was kind of.
Not only is it not necessary, it doesn't seem to have any effect on the book. There's no consequences for anything that happens.
Yeah, I thought there would be
like a bunch of kids just died in a school for the first time in 30 years since the gun ban.
Apparently there was a gun ban, but like
nothing happens because of
do they even say why they had guns? It was a bunch of like really like weird like I don't know, man. I don't know. Let's move on. We're very long on time. Let's end this podcast.
Yeah, we'll take a break and we'll come back and talk about Hawkeye.
I mean, money can't just make people appear. Excuse me. I'm looking for Troy Barnes. Pierce Hawthorne sent me.
Dr. Charles Patrick.
Hey, Troy. Hi. I'm LeVar Burton.
Pierce got LeVar Burton to come here for Troy? Is there anyone he can't produce?
Now I'm really getting mad. Why am I the only one he decided to torture?
I told Pierce 1,000 times I never wanted to meet LeVar in person. I just wanted a picture. You can't disappoint a picture. I hate you, Pierce. I hate you so much.
And we're back.
What's up?
Actually, calling an audible in the break. We want to talk about Hawkeye episodes 3 and 4 and the implications. I won't spoil anything for those of you who haven't watched yet of the stuff that happens in that episode more in depth. So we're gonna spin off a mini episode. Should be
Yeah,
like
tiny
20,
little
30
episode.
minutes.
Yeah.
Especially because this one's already nearing an hour and 30 minutes.
Yeah, we didn't know it. That kind of got away from me. This is actually my fault for once. I'm going to take blame for that one. This is actually on me, not
This
Che.
one's Bendis' fault, I think. I don't think either of us ever intended to talk about Joy Operations for as long as we did, but
I don't think so
holy
either.
Shit,
Yeah, it's so bad.
Need talking about. So we're going to close out here. As you guys already know, if you've listened to the podcast before, it really helps us out if you go rate us 5 stars. If you haven't done that already, please go do it. You can also follow us at Next Time on Pod on all your social media platforms. And most importantly, go check out the website nexttimeon.net and the YouTube, both of which are in the description below. And
If you want links to anything, just go to nexttimeon.net. It is.
Yeah.
You can find all of our stuff there, all of our links. It's the best landing page to go to if you ever need a link for anything.
Yeah, definitely. And finally, we have, of course, as the year wrapping up, coming up pretty soon, our end of the year stuff. So if you haven't already subscribed to the podcast or the YouTube, all that stuff is going to be coming. We're going to have a lot of great content for you to close out the 2021. Anything else for the people, Corey?
No, I do not. You guys, I hope you guys have a wonderful day. All that stuff.
I've been Che.
I've been Corey.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.